Now we're on to the P&L, and we'll start with the base P&L. And much like the sales slides, the upside tab is really just an iteration of the same kind of concepts. So up at the top you can see revenue, and revenue is flowing through from the sales base tab, and it's just picking it up by month all the way across for the 36 months. Therapist wages are coming through and taking the number of massages that you have at the studio, which is a result of your revenue projections, and multiplying it by the rate that you have indicated in the therapist labor tab. And now let's just go to the bottom because we've got some math that is flowing through in here. So down at the bottom we set a credit card rate for your credit card costs, linen service per massage, supply costs, payroll tax rate. You can obviously adjust these to whatever you wish. We've simplified it so that you just enter it in one spot and it carries all the way across. Then we ultimately leads to the front desk wage per hour, including incentives. And then your rent at the number of square feet and the cost per square foot of your lease. And this is expressed in this model as an annual rate. There are some states, California, Arizona, I believe Nevada, that think about that on a per month basis. Just make sure you're thinking about that. It'll be painfully obvious when you enter your number in and your rent is unusually inexpensive. You know, if it's $480 instead of $4,800, that's probably because you've used a monthly rate in your lease instead of an annual rate. So up at the top, the payroll taxes, we had 12% below. Royalty is calculated at 6%. We have credit card fees that are calculated at the rate described below. Massage supplies at the rate below times the number of massages. Linens and laundry is the rate per massage multiplied by the number of massages. And you can see you end up with a contribution or gross profit of almost $1,400 in your first month, but a very low gross profit here. And that's because your labor is very, very expensive based on that work we did on the therapist tab. If we jump back over here, your therapist labor is coming through at almost $27 per massage instead of that equilibrium of 18. If we go back to the sales tab, you can see that the margin improves and improves, and based on all those metrics, is kind of coming in closer to 55%. That would be an optimal result. 55% return would be a very well-run studio. And as we go down the page, we can then see our fixed costs. And again, we have placeholders in here for you. We have $3,500, which is our standard advertising per month. Minimum marketing spend. Then we have the marketing fund fee, and I've got this built in right now so that it picks up in the formula. If you're an Excel geek, it picks up the greater of $500 or 2% of revenues. To the degree that you want to change that, you're more than welcome to. It's an editable field. It's all in green, which technically or typically means we don't recommend editing it. Again, if you edit it, make sure you chase it all the way through the year in case you change your mind and the change you make doesn't carry all the way across. Then we have the costs associated with manager, front desk, owner. Typically, owner's left blank. You're better off seeing the profitability of your studio rather than the comp for an owner, but some people like to use this field. We have manager wages. Just remember that if you hire a manager, you probably reduce your front desk coverage costs, and you'll probably and add a cost in here. I have 0 in here as our default, but once you add a value in here, it goes all the way across the page. Payroll taxes are calculated just as therapist payroll taxes were at that rate below, multiplied by the compensation. And then down below here we have a whole bunch of individual expenses that in our kind of rough model, your starting point come in at about $2,500. Just review these one by one and be cognizant that you're not over or underestimating what they are. These are good numbers for you to start with, but they're never perfect because a whole bunch of things are affect on where you are, how big your site is. Example being utility costs. Are you in a place that gets very cold for extended times of the year or very hot? As well, you may be in a state that has very high workers' compensation costs, and therefore insurance expense will be higher than I have laid out here. But effectively what we've got is a model with a good starting point for you. And then we have the P&L, the upside model. You can see here that I'm picking up revenue from the upside model, so that's all the way across. The variable expenses are all calculated the same way. In this model, I've added an extra couple of $1,000s in for advertising because, in theory, if you're going to get more new clients, you're probably going to spend to get more clients. Again, you obviously can make any changes you want to this. Otherwise, it's all the same kind of assumptions all the way down the page. You'll notice that at a point your front desk wages will ramp up automatically more quickly because in the upside model your number of massages is growing more rapidly. But this ultimately gets you to the two P&Ls, the base P&L and the upside. And these are working P&Ls. They're not meant to be published. They're not meant to be sent to any lenders, but they are an excellent starting point and a working model for you to work through. You're thinking, and no doubt as you go through this, you're going to go back and forth from all the different tabs, but as we work our way through it, the P&L is obviously the next logical step. And sometimes something looks right when you're working perhaps on, say, your labor for therapists, but when you get to the P&L, it just doesn't make sense. And so you need to go back and work on your therapist labor and then come back and see the effect in the P&L.